just hit me up in the chat. Let me know how it's looking. Right, I'm going to start sharing this across the other platforms. Anyone that wants to give it a share, I would be very, very pleased if you did. That would be fantastic. And we'll get a few people in here and we'll get started with some questions. If you've got any questions that you want me to answer, let me know down in the live chat. And we will be doing that. I've got about 17, 18 questions already set up that we need to get through. So we're going to have plenty to do. It's going to be pretty good. Marcin Kowalowski. Am I anywhere close to how I say your name? Sard, hey, how you doing? Arthur Swart, how you doing? I'm just going to share this across a few other platforms. We'll get a few more people in here. We've got a few in at the moment from the looks of it. Well, from what I can see on my side, it looks like we've got 19 watching, which is pretty good. Oh, we're getting a graph. The graph is appearing. Excellent stuff. How's everyone's day going? Everyone enjoying John Prosser's day? Everyone watched this video? Has everyone poured one out for his eyebrows? Marcin Kowalkazik? Kowalkazik? Kowalkazik. I'm going to go with Kowalkazik. Let me know how close I am there. Rahudi20. Hello. Javier. Javier? Javier. How are you? Jai Gupta, this is probably the fake one. Right, this is something we need to address in this show. Guys, if you are impersonating someone else that's on YouTube, one of my friends, please don't. It's just a weird thing to do. I'm not quite sure why you'd want to. Especially, why would you want to impersonate Jai? Weird choice. But anyway. Right, we are streaming. We've got people on the chat. Let's get on with it. Jai Gupta, you're real. Oh, excellent, excellent to know. Cool. Right, we've got a bunch of questions to get through. So we're going to start off with my little list right here. Okay, if I just drop the Z, it would be better if not correct. Right. We're going to start off with SotiriosMaximos. iCave answers, I wanted to see Apple include a feature where you would be able to broadcast your iPhone screen to the MacBook like AirPlay. I heard that it may be coming in future. I hope that it does because alternative I found is very inconvenient. Do you think that we will see such a feature coming in the near future, maybe this year's WWDC for macOS version and iOS 15? So, cool question. We are starting right away. We are getting going. So the question is, will we be able to broadcast basically AirPlay to, will we be able to AirPlay, microphone's a little overloaded, let's try just about there. Is that better? Let me know how that's sounding. Is the sound sounding a little bit better there for you, Marcin? Is that better? So the question that we have on the table is, will Apple allow you to basically AirPlay over to a Mac? And right now, if you are looking to record a Mac screen, recording an iPhone screen, you can do that quite simply by plugging in a lightning cable. Sound is now too low. Oh my. Doing my best here, guys. I'm doing my best. So yeah, the thing that you can do at the moment is you can use QuickTime with a lightning cable through to your iPhone. That will work pretty well. Let me know if the sound is still too low or if we're a lot better now. This is the joy of doing live streams. It's very difficult to monitor your own audio when you're doing this sort of thing. Linda, I hope you've got some coffee. But yes, you can do it with QuickTime. There are a couple of third-party programs out there that you can use if you need to kind of AirPlay, which basically turns your Mac into an AirPlay receiver. But whether it will come natively to the Macs, it might well do actually, because if you think about the systems that we've got at the moment, things like Apple TV that you can AirPlay to, those run on ARM. They run basically a version of iOS. And so it makes it very, very simple if we've now got Macs that are using the same thing to do that. Could well be We don't have an amplifier. Sorry, Marcin. So yeah, this is just the cheapest microphone on Amazon that we're using. This is like 20 quid. It's the one we use for every video, so sorry. But yes, you are able to do it. SotiriosMaximos, let me know. Does that answer your question? If not, smash up the comments and I will make sure that we do it. Just to let you know, this video is going to go on till about 7 o'clock and then we are going to disappear because there's a lot of stuff going on this evening. Just to let you know. Cool. Next question we've got in line. Phil Rosa-Leeke is asking, iCave answers. David, I know this is a bit off topic from today's items, but a question it is. So these questions have all come in over the last week. What is your opinion about smartphone companies increasing the battery sizes in their phones? Let's be honest. Would many complain if their iPhone was an extra 3 or 4 millimeters thick? They could have the same battery as they put in now, plus another one layered of almost exactly the whole size of the phone. So I'm going to open this one up to the floor. Would you like it if your iPhone was a bit thicker? Like 3 or 4 millimeters is quite a lot thicker. That's almost double the thickness. Let me know in the live chat right now. Would you be happy to have a thicker iPhone for longer battery life? So I will just put this out there straight away. I don't want it to be any thicker. I think the battery life on iPhones right now is actually pretty awesome. It does exactly what I need it to do. Guys, the guy that's pretending to be Apple Tomorrow in the chat, you're not Apple Tomorrow. We all know this. Should we just ban you? We could just ban you. I'm kind of bored of this now already. So let's move on from that. In fact, we'll put you on a timeout because I don't want this all to be a chat. Right, so in the comments for me, please, guys, let me know, would you like the bigger batteries in your iPhone or are you happy with what we have? Let me know. Would you be happy with a thicker iPhone in order to get more battery life? Maybe double the battery life, let's say. Very first world problem, thicker phones make them harder to fit in my jeans. That is a super first world problem. Very good, Rahuli. Marcin Kalauzik. Marcin, mine runs for a week with power saver mode. Yep, I'm guessing you must have one of the pros, one of the bigger ones. Happy with the current battery and thickness. I think the batteries are really good right now. Yep, cool. Happy days. So yeah, Phil, I'm afraid everyone in the chat, at least right now, is pretty happy with the battery life. Now, bear in mind that we have seen MagSafe style battery charging cases or battery packs that you can just slap onto the back of an iPhone right now, which basically does what you're asking for. It's not potentially as efficient, but I think for the majority of people, having a phone that's the current thickness and then being able to plug in a battery pack if you need to is probably the best solution, or even those battery cases if you want to go a bit bigger. 6S's still lasting over a day. Yeah, new normal, not spending much time out and about. Battery is okay for me in the 11 Pro. Yeah, so I think everyone's pretty happy with the battery life. It's one of these things that I think we all want bigger batteries, but actually Apple does a really good job of balancing between battery life and weight and thickness, and I think they've got it about right. As long as it can last for a full day and you can get home and plug it in, yeah, works for us. Cool. So, on to Mikey. This is an interesting one. So, iCave answers, what do you think is the stupidest or dumbest thing that Apple has done? And again, hit us up in the chat, guys, if you've got any ideas for what the stupidest thing Apple has done is. I would say, if we're going to go properly back in time, things like the Mac clone program that they brought out, where a long time ago you could actually kind of buy a Mac that wasn't built by Apple. So, it ran macOS, like the macOS classics. I think it was macOS 8 was the one at the time, and when Steve Jobs returned to the company, he kind of put an end to that very quickly by basically pointing out that the license was only for macOS 8, and then brought in macOS 9 and sort of delisted macOS 8 completely, so they couldn't make any more computers because they wouldn't license it. Do we think that Apple will be hit by a chip shortage soon? We will come to that, don't you worry. You think that the so we've got in the chat here the touch screen bar as a big mistake. Okay, interesting, because it's popular with some people, but a lot of people don't like it at all. That's a really cool one. Stupidest thing Apple has ever done was manufacturing and selling the Magic Mouse 2. I cannot disagree with you on that one. The charging, if you've not seen the charging for this, you have to turn it upside down and plug a lightning cable into the bottom of it, so you cannot use it when you are like when it's charging. It's the most ridiculous thing. So Mac clone's not reviving the Cube. I think it looks like the Cube might be making a return. That looks like the kind of form factor that we're getting for this year's Mac Pro. Hi Mikey, that is you. You are Mikey. Linda, and removing the SD card reader from the MacBook Pros. Now, this is a weird one. Right, so I agree. Most pros, or a lot of pros, will actually want to have the SD card reader. At the same time, it's not something that, again, most people... I have so many conversations like this, but SD card is probably the kind of tipping point, but there's so many people that have a Mac and don't use half of what it can do. So, for example, the example that I've been using a lot is things like Boot Camp, that obviously has disappeared from M1 Macs, so you can't dual boot into Windows and macOS. And everyone's like, oh, it's going to fail because you can't Boot Camp. There's like maybe 1% of people that own a Mac have ever used Boot Camp. And probably half of those people have done it a couple of times and then not bothered. Again, with the SD card reader, that's probably a little bit higher because a lot of creatives use MacBook Pro, so it's maybe 25%, which is probably enough to keep it, but I do get that. It was very strange that they removed it, and as I've said in a previous video, I do think that the reason that it got removed was a combination of Johnny Ive and Phil Schiller, who have basically been sort of campaigning to remove as many holes from devices as possible, and I think that is one of those ports that is worth bringing back. One of my concerns is that we've seen with these thin and light laptops that when you put a lot of holes in the side of them, then they can deform quite easily. They can quite easily bend around where those ports are because obviously there's a lot less material there, there's a lot less strength. So this might be something to do with the amount of titanium research they've been doing recently as well, which would be really impressive if they've brought the titanium in so that they can bring those ports back and have a very rigid laptop that's still light, is very, very close on pricing to what they have right now, and I think that could be a good one. I think the Pippin that they did was a pretty dumb idea, but I would love for them to bring the Pippin back as the new name for whatever they bring out as their gaming system, whether that's Apple TV based or what it might be. So let's just jump back into the chat here a little bit. So yeah, we have the Magic Mouse charging again. Magic Mouse, who designed that. We will come back to the I/O stuff. M1X iMac, will it have HDMI out? I think it will have HDMI of some sort, but I don't know if it will be mini or micro or a full-sized HDMI. Not sure. But I think if you put either of those on, you're probably going to want a dongle anyway. Linda, who why do people buy a MacBook Pro? Because they like things that have Pro in the name. That's really the kind of main reason that most people would buy something like that. Especially with the 13-inch, it's not really a computer for pros as such in terms of like creatives, in history at least, but it could be nowadays because the M1 is just so powerful. But by the same token, the Air could do just as much work. Mac Daddy, hey, welcome. Erstwhile Grubsteak, hello, welcome. Ken Parker, the Mac Pen V1 that sticks out from when charging. Oh, gotcha, the Apple Pencil, the first version that you had to charge on Lightning port. Yeah, that was a super dumb decision. iCave, can I speak Hindu? Obviously not. So, never use Boot Camp. If I need Windows, I will go to the library. Good, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Right, let's move on to the next question. In fact, I'm just going to run through the chat because I'm sure we had a couple of questions come up here. Martin asks, do you think Apple will be hit by the chip shortage anytime soon? So, yes, there is a chip shortage at the moment. No, I don't think Apple is going to get hit by it. The one thing that it looks like they might have some issues with is actually with displays and the amount of silicon that gets used in making displays. But in terms of the actual silicon, the processing, I don't think they're going to have any problems at all. And the main reason for that is that Tim Cook is an absolute genius when it comes to logistics and operations. And one of his things is he buys up capacity, and he buys up all of that sort of stuff way in advance. He's always the first to have the capacity kind of reserved for chips that they need, which means what we might see is Intel and not so much Intel, because they make a lot of their own chips, not very well, but they make them, and AMD might start to struggle, and Nvidia might start to struggle. We've already seen this with Nvidia and AMD struggling for graphics cards, mainly because they don't have their own fabs. They use people like TSMC and Samsung to build a lot of their chips, and as a result of that, they are really struggling. Whereas Apple, although they use TSMC to build their chips, they also buy up the capacity way in advance, so they get theirs before anyone else gets theirs. So Apple shouldn't have any problems with that. Right, let's move down the list. We've done that one, we've done that question. Right, let's move on down here a little bit. I need a new mic. Okay. Yeah, maybe this one's getting a little bit old. We might have to pick another one up. I was going to plug this one in. I couldn't find a stand for it. This probably would have sounded a lot nicer. But there we go. Right, next up we have a question from Not the Real Time Works. iCave answers, would you rather be like Apple, do it last but best, or like Samsung, do it first but bad? Why do you think Apple is like it is today? So this is an interesting one because Apple doesn't come to market with most features quicker than anyone else. That doesn't tend to be the way that they go for bringing stuff to our products. That just isn't the way that they've worked in the past. They tend to wait until a product is almost, or like a feature is mature enough, and then they will bring it to the market with the version that works best. Now, they weren't the first to have a fingerprint reader on an electronic device, but there also weren't many phones out there that had fingerprint readers before. Very quickly afterwards, a lot of Androids came out with fingerprint readers, and then when Face ID arrived, a lot of Androids started doing face recognition, but you could fool them with a photograph because it wasn't a 3D model kind of recognition. So in some cases, Apple is first to things. They won't, I don't think, race people in the megapixel wars with the cameras, because I know Samsung's just brought out a 108 megapixel camera, which is, you know, fine. But what Apple does is they will take their sensor and they will just make each pixel bigger as they can make the sensor bigger. And that basically means that each sensor is getting a more consistent amount of, each pixel is getting a more consistent falling of photons onto that sensor, which means that you get less noise and less difference between each pixel, which is why you get much nicer images from the iPhone's cameras than when you go into 108 megapixels. Yeah, you get a massive image, but you don't necessarily get a great image. And what they tend to do is take 108 megapixels and then kind of crush it down to average out those pixels to basically get back to 12 megapixels. So it seems like a very strange option. Snowball next time. Is the sound that bad? I'm sorry, guys. I really am. Let me see if we can switch over. I might have to hold it, but we might be able to switch it over. Let me see. Let's just chat amongst yourselves for a moment. Okay, right, let me just set this up quickly. We will get to nicer sound for you, I promise. Let's take that out. Okay, how's that for levels? Is that working for you guys? A little bit more? How's that? How is your sound now? So much better. Cool. Okay, we can dump this thing. Right. Let's crack on. I'm literally just holding this thing. Beautiful. But at least the autofocus works well with the iPhone. Woo! Look how quick that is. Beautiful. Right. Let's get on with it. So, we've got a couple of questions come up here in the chat, so we'll knock through those so that we don't miss them. iCave answers, what is your favourite Apple product that's not a computer, tablet or phone? Okay, so we're knocking out all the Macs, all the iPhones, all the iPad, AirPods. It's got to be AirPods. Like, AirPods are awesome. Like, I've only got the basic ones, but they're just amazing. And yeah, it's basically those. Anything else here in the live chat quickly? Oh, do you use light mode or dark mode? Dark mode, obviously. I don't think anyone would be allowed anything else. So, right, let's move on to another question from our list, because we have got quite a few to get through today. Oh, I have a little bit of buffering on there, but hopefully that's not happening your end. Right, next one on the list here. Who do you think was the first real Apple leaker? Gizmodo with the iPhone 4. This comes from a YouTube account, which I think we've seen in the chat today. So, dark mode king. Yes, absolutely. Yes, I think the first big kind of leak from Apple that anyone kind of knew about was going to be the iPhone 4. That was the one that really hit the headlines because the iPhone had already arrived. We'd had the iPhone 3G, the 3GS, and to be completely honest, the way that the leaks came out for the iPhone 4, nobody believed it was real. Nobody believed that something as ugly as that, something as ugly as what has become an absolute design classic in terms of iPhones, could have possibly been real. This couldn't be something that Apple would make, because look at it, it's hideous, isn't it? Absolutely horrendous. But that being said, all of the phones at the time were nice and curvy at the back, nice and comfortable to hold in your hand. This was completely different. This was kind of Johnny Ive really going for it, I think, and going for that kind of flat glass, make it as minimal as it could be. And I think this thing is still beautiful. The new iPhones, by the way, are exactly the same width as the steel band on these things. So if you take the glass sandwich off of this, that's the same width as the iPhone 12 Pro, 12 Pro Max, all of those. The screen is tiny by today's standards. Yes, it's about 3.5 inches, but it was also massive by the standards of the time. And I remember when I got my first iPhone 4, I'd come from an HTC Touch Diamond, and that thing was even smaller, plasticky screen, all the usual stuff. But no, it doesn't look dated. And even when you turn it on, let's see, is it got any charge? No. Do I have one with charge? I do. It's got 4% in my other one, but even the display is still like retina quality. Like, this thing just looks ace, and it still moves quite nicely. Everything is still quite fluid. Whoop. Like, it's stunning how nice this thing still is. So there we go. The one that doesn't work, this one that I said has no charge, that just actually doesn't work. We're going to strip that down. We're going to make it into some art. So that will be fun. Cool. So, yeah, that was one of the first big leaks. There was also, and this is Apple leaked it themselves, the Power Mac G5 was put onto Apple's website before it existed, and Steve had to come out on stage and sort of go, you might have seen some leaks that seemed a bit too good to be true. Well, actually, they're not too good to be true. Here it is. It actually exists. So, yeah, pretty awesome. Jack Welch, next question. iCave answers, did you know that Steve Jobs was not the first CEO? That's true. It was another guy. Name escapes me, but he was just kind of a business guy that they brought in. It wasn't Mark Markler. It was somebody completely different. But, yeah, he wasn't the early CEO. He only became CEO when he actually returned to Apple. He was the iCEO to begin with, but the I was for interim. And then, obviously, when he introduced things like the iMac and stuff like that, we got this kind of, oh, he's the iCEO because iMac and iPhone and iPad and everything else. But it was just a cool little story. Duke of Kidderminster asks, and this one's interesting, and I want you guys to leave me some of your feedback on this one. Mike Scott, that's correct. Good job. Right, so Duke of Kidderminster asks, what are your 3 most indispensable Mac utilities or accessory apps? Might be nice to hear what other viewers' ones are too. So yeah, let me know what your utility apps are that you guys use in the chat here. So the ones that he has put down that he uses, Better Touch tool, greatly expands on the Magic Mouse and trackpad functionality, simply a must-have. So that basically adds more gestures, I'm guessing. I haven't tried this, but it sounds pretty cool. iCollections, similar to the old AppDrag thing, this provides additional docs. That's quite cool. And Typinator, my favourite text expander tool. Text expander or some tools in Alfred are also good options. So, we've got Janos Weimer saying Alfred, Activity Monitor. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of built in. iStat menus, yeah, I used to use that on the Intel Mac over here, but I haven't put it onto here yet because I've just not felt the need, because Activity Monitor is pretty good. Better Touch tool, okay, you use that one as well, cool. The ones that I would say, Daisy Disk is really good for checking out where your hard drive capacity is going. That's really, really handy for me. There was something that I used to use called Unclutter, which was like a kind of bin at the top of your drive, at the top of your screen that you could kind of drag down from the top of the screen, and you had like a permanent clipboard there, so you could keep some text in there that you might need to use regularly, again like a text expander, but you know, you could also dump images and things like that into it. Sip a color picker, Rahuli, okay, what's that one? That sounds interesting. Drive DX, anyone use Hazel? So I've not heard of any of these, so I will be going through some of these to find out what they're like afterwards. I'm just trying to think what else I use. Iriun webcam, that's one that I'm using right now, because obviously I'm using a Mac Mini with a couple of external displays, doesn't have a webcam, so that's why we're using the iPhone 12 Pro Max. We're using Iriun webcam, which is what I use so that I can basically use FaceTime on the Mac. So it just basically turns your iPhone into a webcam for a Mac, which is great, especially if you've got a MacBook as well that has the terrible kind of potato webcams. This will run up to, I think it runs up to 4K, but we're also we're using it through OBS at the minute, so it's kind of made things a little bit different. I think it's only streaming at 720. Cool. So we've got a few good ones in there. Right, let's have a look what we've got next. This comes from Jim McKinns Boylan. Hi Dave, what are your thoughts on a new 3rd gen pencil for the A14X iPad Pro? Do you expect the new iPad Pro to work exclusively with the Gen 3 pencil if there is one, or would you expect backward compatibility with the Gen 2 pencil if the rumours are true about there being a size difference? Keep up the good work, Jim. So, yeah, we have a couple of things in there. So, A14X iPad Pro. Now, it does look like we're going to be getting those after April now. It doesn't look like they're going to be at the April event, which is great for me because I'm hoping that that means we're going to be getting iMacs and MacBook Pros in April. That would be fabulous. But yeah, the Gen 3 pencil. Now, we've got some very kind of strange, like, rumours about this, like it being a bit shorter, which to me suggests that that might just be for an iPad Mini redesign where it's going to get the flat sides as well. I'm not 100% sure whether they would just shorten the pencil, because I think the current pencil length is like perfect, because it's, you know, a lot like a pencil. We don't want the Apple Pencil IKEA edition with those little tiny pencils that you get. But in terms of features in the Apple Pencil 3, I think we've talked about this on the show before. I would love that to have a color picker built into it. So you can actually have a small camera in the tip, and then you can touch it on a real surface. It uses that camera to grab the colour, and then you can paint in your iPad with it. I think that would be super cool. It would be amazing for interior designers and stuff like that, that they could literally just pick colours from physical swatches or from an item in the room, and then paint that into a room, something like that. That hopefully would make sense, I think. Especially when you then combine that with using a LiDAR sensor in the iPad itself to scan the room. You can kind of build a 3D model, and then you can paint it, and you can walk around this 3D model that you've just made. I think that would be really, really cool. Next up, 3 stable Muse. iCave answers, since we probably won't see a touch Mac, do you think we'll get something like an iPad Pro Max with a 27-inch screen and an M1X processor on a swivel tilt mount like the Microsoft Surface Pro 7? Something suitable for artists or illustrators or architects with a better Apple Pencil. Just holding out false hope. So I have said, actually, I think that we're more likely to get pencil support on Apple Silicon Macs than we are to get full touch support, at least to begin with. And I think that would be really, really cool. It would be a real nice thing to just have some sort of touch input, some sort of way of using, because Macs in general have glass screens just like an iPad. I can't imagine we're going to get a 27-inch iPad. That seems just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Not to take the mickey out of what you've suggested, but I think that would just be the most unwieldy thing. Why would you even bother calling it an iPad at that point? I think you would definitely, it would sit in the Mac family, but it would have the touchscreen. So that would be my guess, at least on that point. And I think it would be great for Apple to create something specifically for artists and architects and creative people that uses a pencil. I think that would be a really, really compelling product. But do I see that happening as its own thing? I don't see it that way. Now, let's just quickly jump back into the chat. So Rahuli, you were talking about that color zipper color picker. That's pretty cool. So you can get the hex values. That's really interesting. Kujo YCC, back in the day, Mac Week would publish tons of details before Apple announced products. I signed NDAs where Apple staff told us stuff we already knew. Amazingly, they were surprised. So did you used to work at Mac Week? That's awesome. If you did, that's really, really cool. Gigupta, the videos are getting a lot of views, over 2K yesterday. Yeah, over 2K. Yesterday's video had over 11,000 views. Yeah, so yesterday's video, we had a real uptake. It was a massive, massive hit for us. And I don't know if any of you guys are kind of in the YouTube space particularly, but there's a guy called Daryl Eves that I need to give a shout out to. So he was doing a live stream because he's released a book on how he kind of manages YouTube channels, and he gave me he answered one of my questions on the show, which I did a super chat for, and then redesigned one of my thumbnails, which really helped me to kind of understand what thumbnails should be. Just to give a bit of context, he works with people like Mr. Beast and some of the really biggest kind of YouTubers on the internet. So yeah, it just absolutely blew my mind, and it's changed the way that I look at thumbnails. And then like 2 days later, I put a thumbnail out on a video and it gets 11,000 views in 24 hours, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, that's kind of why we did that. What was I? Yeah, so that was Gigupta's question there, right? Would be amazing, especially with Pantone color books. Rahuli, yeah, I agree. Arthur Schwartz saying that RGB colors can't be used by interior designers. No, but if you've got the color codes, it would be very useful to bring it in as something that you can use for visualizations in the first place. As long as you know what the code is yourself for those colors, yeah, that could be noted into it. Not a problem. Marcin Kalowski, I completely butcher your surname in a different way every single time. There are conversion tables. Yep. iPad on a stick. Yep. That's basically what everyone was saying the iMacs are going to be, is an iPad on a stick in terms of the design. So we will see what happens with that. I'm really hoping that we do get the rotating display that I've been kind of going for a little while. I took everything. Hey, sup? Well, we're doing a live stream. We're doing some questions and answers and stuff. So if you want to ask a question, feel free. Cujo YCC worked at an Apple dealer and years later started and owned your own Apple dealership. Awesome. That's really cool. Glad you enjoyed the video yesterday. Right, we've got a couple more questions here in my list. So if you've got any more, dump them into the chat. That's all cool. Right, Slow Cuba asks, are webcams good with M1 Mini? The more I research, the more confused I'll become. Can a USB webcam be used with a Mac Mini for Zoom and Teams meetings without downloading OBS and virtual audio and video drivers? I'm considering the Nextgeo N930, what a catchy name, or the Logitech C920 cameras, but don't want to download a load of third-party software to the wife's Mac Mini just in order to make them work. She doesn't need much in graphics, just beefed up her RAM and SSD to compensate for the Rosetta-dependent apps she'll be running. Cool. So yeah, in terms of running a webcam, regular webcams from Amazon, they work. You plug them in, they work. That's one of the great things with Apple. They tend to detect stuff and just make it work. You don't need to find drivers and stuff in most cases. What I did mention to him, though, in the comments section is that obviously this Irun webcam is brilliant for using for things like Zoom and for OBS and stuff like that if you want to. And I was on a Teams meeting on it the other day and it worked really, really well. Very, very simple. You just plug it in, open the app, and it connects over your wired connection. So that's one of my ports on the back of the Mac Mini is purely for my Lightning cable so that I can plug in. However, what we're doing right now is over Wi-Fi because we're using the OBS camera. Cool. 12 AM there, iTech. Everything. So whereabouts are you? I'm just trying to work that out. So we're 6 hours on, so I guess you're kind of South Asia, India, Sri Lanka kind of area, maybe. Cool. My recommendation as someone who teaches over Zoom is to acquire a capture card and use an actual camera or camcorder. So I got one of these capture cards, one of the USB ones, not the Elgato one. I got one of the cheap ones. Tried to plug it into my Lumix because that was going to be the plan for this setup. And although it looked fine when you were kind of throwing everything through it, as soon as you tried to record it, it looked like absolute potato quality. So I probably messed it up somehow. But yeah, not doing great with that one. That was a Lumix G7. Linda, maybe you can send me some tips on how to get that working. I took everything India. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I didn't do bad on my guesses. So, we've got a couple more questions over here then, if you've got nothing in the chat right now. Jog up to in NYC, hey? It's weird, I thought you lived in India as well. Right, so Mikey, we have another question. Why do you think that Steve Wozniak doesn't get as much recognition as he deserves like Steve Jobs? So, Steve Wozniak exited the company a lot earlier. That's the main reason. He wasn't there when Apple was kind of doing their big growth. He was there right at the beginning. He built the Apple I's, the Apple II's. He helped to develop the Lisa, I think. But he wasn't on the Macintosh team. And he wasn't still with Apple, I don't think, when we got to the point of the Power Mac G3s, the G4s, the kind of beautiful stuff that Steve was working on, the kind of more visionary stuff. Wozniak was the engineer. He was the one that made stuff work in the early days at Apple. Steve Jobs was the one that was far more, you know, he was just a lot more about the art and about the kind of feel of stuff. You know what I mean? So that's what we were talking about on that side. Okay. Alright, let's just sort this one out. See you later. Right. coming down here to the next question is from my dad. So, iCave answers, is there OCR built into iPhone or iPad? So, I don't know if anyone else has done this, but you can use the scanner app in the in Notes. You can use the scanner in there. Huh? I didn't know that it deleted them. I think I'd just put him on a timeout. Cool. Yeah, so you can use the Notes app in the iPhone or in the iPad to scan stuff, and you can use that as well to OCR it, and it will kind of be searchable within the iPhone's Notes app. So you can do that, and I think you can also then highlight the text and copy and paste it into other stuff as well. Yeah, Files. Oh, Files has got a scanner as well, has it? Excellent stuff. Cool. So yes, Dad, you can do that. Glad I can help. Arthur Swart asks, iCave answers, I'm still worried about the life expectancy of the soldered SSDs in the M1. Would it be possible to boot from a Thunderbolt drive if needed? Would it make sense to do so while the soldered on flash memory is in great condition? Right. Linda, yes, we are using OBS. Right. Let's get into this one. So, the SSD thing. Is there anyone, hands up in the comments if you are worried about the SSD thing? About SSD wear? Is this something that concerns any of you guys? Because for me, it absolutely doesn't. It seems very much like we're going to have... plenty of lifespan in these SSDs. There have been stories out there because certain people have got these kind of smart tools that they've installed, which are telling them a percentage of drive usage. Now, the drive usage stuff, this is based on its assumed TBW, total bytes written. Total bytes written. So, Arthur Swart, this is your question, so yeah, I assumed you would be. Right. So the TBW is basically the warranty for how long the drive will last, how many writes it is warranted to last. So it will not fail before that point. Just like when you buy a car, when you get a warranty on a car, it might be for 50,000 miles. That does not mean at 55,000 miles your car is going to be useless, you throw it in the bin. It's going to go on for a lot longer than that. And I understand that, yes, with a car you can replace parts, but you don't need to worry. In most cases, these drives will go far past a petabyte of files being written. In most cases as well, people are, okay, writing 30 gigs a day, cool, no problems. So with that, I think you get about 40 years of drive life. So I don't think there's anything to worry about there. Once you get to about 120 gigs a day, then you're going to be getting somewhere. Yeah, exactly. You've got plenty of space, and the drives that Apple uses are pretty much the highest rated ones that you can buy. They're very, very good. I don't know of anyone that's had issues with an SSD wearing out. I don't actually know of any SSDs that I've ever heard of just being like, no, we're done, we're out. They just don't use that much. And it does seem like the things that are using more of the drive is things like using Chrome, because it buffers a lot of stuff, especially with YouTube. Also using Rosetta apps. So the stuff that hasn't been optimized yet by the developers, they tend to be the bigger culprits for this at the moment. And it's really kind of, it drops it by 50 to 70% when you're not using those kind of apps. So that is something to bear in mind if you are concerned. Linda, I think you are absolutely right. YouTubers need something to discuss. I don't like talking about it particularly because I don't think it's something that's a real issue, but it is something that people are concerned about, so we need to kind of address it. But I think in the vast majority of cases, it's just not going to be an issue. The system is going to be very much outdated. I mean, the original thing came from a developer that was saying, oh, this drive is going to die in 2 to 3 years. then when you actually looked at the amount that he was using, it would actually go for about 14 years. And let's be honest, you're not actually going to have any issues with that. Like 14 years, if you're a developer and this is a system you work on, you know, it's going to be 2 to 3 years and you're going to upgrade it anyway. So I don't think it's a problem. Linda, quick one there. Am I using a hub? You're more concerned about SSD speed. Well, I use the internal SSD on the Mac when I was recording, and yeah, it wasn't playing at all. I was using the hub actually to connect it, so I might try direct into the back of the Mac Mini. That might be a good idea. Chrome is trash. Safari is the best. Agreed. External drives, I do use some external drives. Read speeds and stuff are definitely slower than the internal, but not a drama at all there. Cool. Safari is actually good nowadays. Yes, it really is. It's such a good browser. I don't know why people are bothering with Chrome unless they particularly need certain plugins, which I pop into Chrome every so often because I need to get plugins for YouTube to check tags and things like that. That's about it. Cool. So I think we can move on from that one. Like, you can boot from an external Thunderbolt drive if you really want to. I don't think it's particularly the best idea. I think the best thing you can do if you're very concerned about the writes is to avoid Chrome and avoid Rosetta apps as far as possible. Try and use as many native apps as you can. So, on to Marcin's next question. Do you think Apple is going full nuclear on the leakers? I mean, this would mean something major coming. Right, so this is obviously talking about what went on with the Apple event. This is what's talking about what happened to John Prosser and RIP his eyebrows, because he bet them on the event happening today. So, are they going full nuclear? I think they are pushing out some information that is designed to trip up some of these leakers and to discredit them so that they kind of drop down. Because last year, let's be honest, leaking became its own kind of cottage industry on Twitter because everyone was sitting in their houses, nobody had anything to do, so that was what everyone spent their days doing. So, do I think that Apple is going full on? I think they are trying to trip them up. I think they're trying to make their lives more difficult, and I think they are trying to kind of give them a little bit of a kick, which is kind of fun in its own way. It'll be interesting to see how much of the stuff we've heard about is real, but I would say there's been a lot of YouTubers talking about how we can't possibly be getting the MacBooks or iMacs soon because we haven't heard anything about it from the supply chain. But if you look back at what was happening before the Apple Silicon event in November, there was pretty much nobody was right about what was coming. I was probably one of the few that predicted a Mac Mini coming. But that was not because we'd had any leaks. That was because it made sense. Because they'd already had the developer transition kit that had come out in the Mac Mini chassis. So we knew that they could do it very simply. But nobody really knew whether it was going to be a 12-inch MacBook or a 13-inch MacBook Air or a 13-inch MacBook Pro that was going to come, and then we got all of them. So nobody was really talking about the 13-inch MacBook Air being the one. Nobody was talking about taking the fan out of it. It was an event that blew a lot of people away. It meant that people that were kind of on the PC side were like, oh no, this isn't true, it can't be real, no, they've just put vague graphs up. They'd put vague graphs up, but they were accurate. So, I actually think that, yes, Apple's putting out a bunch of stuff that is to throw off the leakers, but it's still fun. Right, what else have we got here? Can we talk on Twitter afterwards? Yes, sure, we'll be on Twitter. Not a problem at all. Tom Nelson, yes, except for the 12-inch. I'm still not convinced that that's gone away forever. That might be what becomes a MacBook SE down the line with an M1 in it, but we'll see. Right, let's head back over. We've got, again from Marcin, Do you think offloading big files to an external drive and keeping system apps on the internal SSD of ARM would extend its lifespan for the long haul 5 to 10 years, as it would put less pressure on the SSD? It would do, but I also don't think it will actually matter too much. We've kind of already covered that chunk of stuff. Do I think that the M1X iMac crash leak is intentional? No, I don't. I think that was something that just happened. I think someone was using an iMac, because I expect that some of these iMacs are around Apple Park right now. I expect that they're being used in the labs, and they probably were just listening to some music on it, trying out some stuff, and it crashed, and they didn't realise that it was going to send a report. So I think that's probably legit, and I think it probably came from inside Apple Park. Last one from Marcin, I think. What is your take on Apple versus Epic? Will Apple prevail? As I think it does a good job of warding off Facebook for now. Apple versus Epic is a difficult one. There's definitely some states that are kind of siding with the kind of freedom to use other app stores. There's other states that have kind of just kicked it out and gone, no, you broke the terms of your agreement, and that's why they kicked you out. So I think it's going to be a mixed bag, and I think it's going to be really weird. I think there's going to be some states for a while where Apple will just be saying, no, we're not selling iPhones in this state. You can buy them from another state and get them shipped in. So I think that's what's going to happen. In all honesty, I think Georgia might be one of the ones that's kind of close to passing it, but we will see. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the actual court case, because we've got the big one coming up with Tim Cook and Craig Federighi, and they were trying to find Scott Forstall to testify, so we'll see what happens with that. Whether they win or not, I don't think anyone's going to be a winner out of this. The biggest winners have been the smaller developers that are making under $1 million a year, that have got half the commission now. So that's a pretty good thing. Right, a big old question from Arthur Swart. Follow up to the headless iPhone question. Now, this was a previous question that we were talking about with basically, would Apple Glass become a kind of headless version of the iPhone where you would be able to do everything without having an actual screen in front of you? So, just for context. What I was wondering is if it would be possible for the iPhone screen view into an AR view using Apple Glass. When combined with the watch, it should be possible to manipulate a virtual screen using the hand on the watch's side. Using LiDAR or Find Me should be easy enough to calibrate the position of the hand, as well as the position of the hand in relation to the fingers is fixed. Different hand sizes can be learned about by the AI. There needs to be a protocol that allows you to use that hand for other tasks as well. When that's done, you just swipe and gesture into the air 2 feet in front of you. All that changes is where you look in the world, and the world is transformed into a TikTok nightmare free of charge. Storage has to become small enough to fit into the glass, and cloud drives work just fine. SIM cards are now digital. Power might be an issue though. Even though most of the iPhone battery charge is used by the screen, the SoC will need a fair amount of power to pull off this 3D interface. It might be possible to charge the glass wirelessly using induction, but more robust options like charge at night, there are probably a better idea for version 1. CPU would probably have to be placed in the watch unless it becomes really minute. Now, I definitely think they can fit, if they can put them in AirPods, they can fit a CPU into these. That won't be a problem at all. They just have to make it a different shape. The device could also replace regular spectacles by implementing the optician's prescription on the displayed picture of the camera input. Software could even monitor the deterioration of the eye and adjust the picture accordingly. One might also share a view with someone using the same device, and several people could watch the same footage with different audio or subtitles. Because you are using your own eyes and brain to watch, the resolution would be beyond anything a screen could do, or have I just lost the plot? So, these are going to have screens inside them. Screens, they're looking at basically mini displays that will bounce stuff off the glasses. Now, don't expect the Apple Glass to do much beyond what your Apple Watch can do to begin with. It's not going to be something that gives you this immersive virtual space. That's what the VR headset is probably going to be for, which we've already talked about is probably going to come with a pair of 8K displays, but it will also eye track so that it can basically only display the full resolution in the bits that you're looking at the time. As long as it can track your eyes quickly enough, that will be absolutely fine, because you can only focus on something about the size of a quarter. In terms of the other stuff on there, yeah, I just don't see why it's better to put an iPhone screen on the inside of a pair of glasses and then wave your hands about in the air and look a bit silly. I don't think people are going to want to do that when it's out and about. I think it's going to be very much a kind of tap on the glasses. I think it's going to be a bit of Siri. I think they might use some of that kind of skull audio stuff to maybe tap you on the side of the head for notifications. I'm not 100% sure, but that seems like the kind of way they'd go. But all of this is speculation with anything Apple Glass at this point. Right, just going to quickly run down the comments here. We're going to be finishing off in about 10 minutes, guys. I missed the Mac Mini Pro. Jim, the Mac Mini Pro, if there is such a thing, is it's still there. That's I guess the top of the line Intel one that you're talking about of the Mac Minis. It's still there, but the cheapest M1 Mac Mini outperforms it, so I don't know why people would buy it, because it's a lot more expensive. Elisa Aquino, iCave answers, do you think the M1 Apple will one day hold a larger amount of market share? Now it's growing, but do you think they will hold a majority? Not sure they'll get to a majority, but I think for a lot of normal people, a Mac will definitely be a better option for them than going for a Windows computer. There's a lot less stuff that you need to actually worry about. You don't have to defrag it, you don't have to run disk checks, you don't have to do security updates every week. Is it every week? Something like that. Feels like it's every day. But yeah, I just think for the performance per dollar at the moment is just better with a Mac, which has never been something you've been able to say before, and that's pretty impressive. Arthur Swart, am I still considering videos on old Mac stuff? Yes, we will do it. It's a case of finding time to get up in the loft and be able to have space to bring stuff down, and then filming it all. It's not as easy as just making a news video every day, although making the news video every day is not an easy task either. Marcin, do you think the iMacs will be as hard to open as the current ones, or will the thickness make a difference? They will be hard to open, and there will be no point in opening them because there won't be anything you can do inside there anyway. Pretty sure that's going to be the case. Don't think there's going to be anything that you will be able to upgrade. Don't expect anything other than a Mac Pro to be upgradable with Apple Silicon. These are appliances, they're like an iPad. Tim Beaton would think they'll be as difficult to get into as the last iMac configuration. Yeah, I think they'll be hard to get into. I don't think they'll make it hard specifically. I think they might make them easier to get into, but there just won't be a need to do it. Lisa Aquino, if you were to change one thing about the iPhone 12 models, what would it be? I would have liked to have them earlier. Very pleased with my iPhone 12. The Pro Max, it's just astonishing. Really, really good phone. Very much my favourite phone ever. Yes, you'd like to see the new Mac Mini Pro. Cool. Jim, that is awesome. Right, we've got a couple more questions left on my list, literally 2. So, Marcin is asking, this is one from today, I think. I wonder why many others steadfastly believe that the smaller iMacs will receive the M1X chip and the bigger one will be pushed to fall winter. For me, this makes little sense as the iMac Pro was killed off already, or am I missing something? So, I think the reason that the iMac Pro was killed off is because it would have been completely embarrassed by the Apple Silicon iMacs, even in the smaller configuration. I'm pretty sure both are going to come at the same time. They've already been submitted to the ECC or the EEC. I always get it confused. But basically the thing that they have in Europe, which is the equivalent of the FTC, which they have to register all of the wireless stuff. So they've already been registered. So have the 2 new MacBook sizes and new designs. They're all in there. We've already got the product codes. We know what they are. We just don't know when they're coming because they were all published in about October time, and we made a video on it back then. And I genuinely don't think that the size of it is going to make any difference to the performance. I think that the 16 and 14-inch MacBook Pros will have the same performance, but one will have a bigger display and probably nicer speakers and things like that, and the other one will be smaller. and the same with the iMacs with the 24 and 30 or 32 inches that we get. Last one on the list is Hugh Levant James. Will there be an Apple Watch redesign like the iPhones and Macs, and if so, when? Also, it's 1 Hertz. Yeah, I know, we've established this. I was being a little bit silly in the video when I said, is it Hertz or Hurt? But yes, it's named after Mr. Hertz. So, yes, I think they are going to give a redesign this year. We got about 3 years of the original design, series 0, 1, 2, 3, but it was like in 3 years, and we've had 3 years of this design, so it makes sense that they might be changing that up. I think we'll be getting flat sides, and it will look quite nice. Linda Lawson, do you think that the Mac Pro will start at a lower price point? Probably yes, because I think a massive amount of the issue was that they were paying a lot for the Intel chips for it. However, I think the big delta on this is going to be whether they come with their own version of the Apple Silicon chips, or if they're going to get like 2 or 4 M1Xs like stacked up, because I think that would make a lot more sense for Apple to do if they can kind of make them talk to each other well enough. The original G5s used to have the option of 2 separate processors. This is kind of before we were into multi-cores though. So that's what I would expect them to do. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, that's my expectation, is that it probably will be a lower price point if they're using multiple M1s or M1Xs rather than their own chip. If they have to do their own chip specifically for the Pros, then it's going to be a bit of an issue, because it just means that they've got to make another SKU, another design, do all the testing on that, and then only probably make 10,000 of them ever, something like that, before they have to upgrade it. So let's move on to the next ones here. PC tax is ridiculous. Yep, completely. It's so fun to say that nowadays. Not the real time works. Why do you think Apple came up with the I name like iPhone, etc.? So this was actually answered in a book called Insanely Simple by Ken Siegel, and the iMac was the first one. It was for Internet Mac at the time, but I also meant imagination and a whole bunch of other stuff. It was kind of a vacuous, could be anything Mac. The original iMac was actually going to be called the MacMan to begin with, as a homage to the Walkman, because Steve Jobs was a massive fan of Sony stuff. Sounds a bit ridiculous now, but I bet if we'd done it, we would have ended up with a lot of Man products. We would have had MacMan, we would have had MacBook Man. I don't know. But yeah, something like that would have happened. So, Marcin has asked, I wonder if ARM iMac will just reuse the junk fan from the 2012 design, as it has a dust intake problem. Oh, I didn't even know about that, to be completely honest. Bit of an issue with that one. I've never had the 2012, so I would not know. I have the 2013 sitting over here. Linda Lawson, I like a modular setup. Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be an option for you. I think maybe they'll bring it back down to that kind of $3,000 rather than $6,000, which would be great. Stephen Huxtable, hi Dave, thanks for joining us. We're just about to finish this stream off. And Not the Real Time Works, I have the Steve Jobs biography. I love it. That's the Walter Isaacson one, right? Cool. Jim, sleep well, David. Hope your son is fine. Yeah, they're both really good, but they're also being quite noisy now. So we are going to wrap this stream up. Cool. Thank you all for joining us. We've smashed through a whole bunch of iCave answers. If you've got any questions, you know what to do. Use hashtag iCave answers down in the comments. Smash the subscribe button if you haven't yet, but I can't imagine there's anyone on here that hasn't subscribed already. But thank you for joining us, and I'm going to call it a day right there. Thanks ever so much, everyone. Family is all good. Love you all.